for ages 5 to 12 years old. Please, brothers and sisters, please guide your kids to the Farsi hall. And also we're going to have babysitting for the ages 2 to 5 years old down the hall in the pre-K room. So 7:30 to 8:30, please have your kids in the kids program. Otherwise, they have to actually sit down with you. The kids should sit down with their parents. This is the policy at Saba. So with that said, inshallah, we're going to invite our dear Maulana Sayyid Hussein Radawi to come here and deliver the speech with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله نعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Because Maulana is not coming today, inshallah, I will do the fiqh session, and inshallah when he comes he'll continue with the fiqh session after the speech. When a person is deciding whether to fast or not due to health reasons, due to health conditions, whether because they're sick or because they have another type of excuse because of old age, this is a decision which they need to make themselves. They need to look at their lives, they need to look at their health, obviously get counsel from a health professional, talk to other people who are in a similar situation, and they need to decide for themselves that whether they fall under the category of yutiqunuhu, that fasting is something which is capable of doing it, but something which is very, very difficult to do, which normally isn't tolerated by people. It's a personal decision. They need to decide whether they can do it or not. And this is something between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nobody going to come and audit you except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you're sincere in your own ways in making those types of decisions. If you're sick and you truly are sick, then if you decide not to fast, that's your decision, and that's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody has a judgment to come and say, you're not really sick, you should fast. No, that's something which they should be sincere in deciding that with their own consultation and with their own personal decisions. So today in this short ahkam session, what I want to talk about is, when does the time of fasting begin? When does the siyam begin? The time of siyam begins from the beginning of Fajr all the way to the time of Adhan al-Maghrib. There's a little bit of discussion that when does the Adhan of Fajr start? And this is a little bit challenging, especially for us, because we're not really living in a natural environment. We're living inside of buildings and homes and these type of things. If we were to be out in a desert, it would be a lot easier. But the way that we can determine when is the time of Fajr is that when the sun begins to rise, we see that the first rays of the sun begin to hit the parts of the earth which are in darkness. That time is called a twilight. When those first rays come and hit the part of the earth which is darkness, the sun is still beneath the horizon, but those initial rays are hitting the earth where it's still dark. When those first rays of light, when they appear, when they hit the part of the earth which is dark, those rays, they're vertical. They go up and down. They go north and south. They're vertical in their nature. After a few minutes, as the earth continues to rotate, what happens is that those rays, they're going up and down. Now they begin to become horizontal. They begin to go from east to west. You see a little bit of light coming, and the light is going this way, from east to west. The first one, when the first initial rays, when they come and they go up and down, they're vertical, that's called al-fajr al-kadhib. That's not the true time of fajr. The true time of fajr is when those rays, when they begin to hit the earth, and they start shining on the earth in a horizontal manner. Once they start hitting the earth in that horizontal manner, that is called al-fajr sadiq. And the difference between this time, these two, Fajr al-Kadhib and Fajr al-Sadiq, is that they say about between 25 and 30 minutes. So this al-Fajr al-Sadiq, this is the beginning of the time of Fajr. And this is also when the time of Siyam also begins. Our Siyam begins at this moment. And when does fasting end? Fasting ends at the time of Maghrib. And there's a little bit of discussion, there's a little bit of debate, when does Maghrib time happen? Some of our fuqaha say, a very small number of our fuqaha say that when the sun sets and when the sun goes below the ufuq, when the sun goes below the horizon, what they call istitar al-qurs, that once the sun goes below the horizon, that's ghurub. And some of our scholars, they say that that is also the time of Maghrib. Some of the Shia fuqaha. The Sunni brothers and sisters, they say that is the time of Maghrib. But the vast majority of our Shia fuqaha, they say that no. They say that when the sun sets in the west, what happens is on the opposite side of the sky, in the eastern part of the sky, there's a little bit of redness. It's a crimson color. So when the sun is setting in the western side, the sun goes below the horizon, but because of the properties of light, there's still sun shining on the eastern part of the sky. When the sun is on the eastern part of the sky, there's the rays of the sun are on the eastern part of the sky. If you look there, it's a little bit red. It has an orange and reddish and crimson type of color. The vast majority of our fuqaha say that once the redness from the eastern part of the sky disappears, that is when the time of Maghrib comes. So they say it's approximately a difference of 15 to 20 minutes. And so most of our Shia fuqaha, they either give a fatwa, they say, yes, this is the time, the disappearance of the redness from the eastern part of the sky, or they do ihtiyat wajib. They give their ruling is that to do ihtiyat, but the ihtiyat is wajib, meaning that you should wait until the redness begins to disappear. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Come salli ala Muhammad wa ali. So there's approximately a 15 to 20 minute delta between the two, when the sun sets and when the disappearance of the redness from the sky comes about. However, some of the Shia fuqaha, they also say that the time of Maghrib is when the sun sets, when the sun goes below the horizon. So as soon as the sun goes below the horizon, some of our fuqaha like Ayatollah Bahjat, he was of the opinion that if the sun goes below the horizon, then it's permissible to open your fast. It's also permissible to pray your Maghrib prayers. And that's something which is discussed in higher levels of fiqh and higher levels of scholarship. But just an interesting point that I want to mention is that one of the brothers, he was actually a muqallid of Ayatollah Bahjat, and he actually used to work in New York City. And he used to work in a high-rise building. So for him, the time of Maghrib would be different from the people on the ground. Because the people on the ground, their time for Maghrib would be as soon as the sun goes below the horizon. But because he's working in a high-rise building, he had to wait a little while longer. So it's important that these small things are also taken into consideration. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But it's become a lot easier because now with technology, we're able to come up with certain calculations. And so this is what most of the timetables that we see, they have these calculations. They say, for example, for imsak, most of the timetables say when the sun is, for imsak in the morning, the fajr prayer, time of imsak is when the sun is 16 degrees beneath the horizon. When the sun is 16 degrees beneath, then they say that is a time for imsak. And then when it comes to 15.5 or 15 degrees beneath the horizon, then that's the time of Fajr. And that's something which a lot of these timetables use. And it's something which you can actually go and put your own calculations in, whatever you feel comfortable with. But for imsak, they do a little bit of ihtiyat, that you should you should stop eating a little bit before the time of Fajr, just to ensure that your siyam and your fast is valid. Salawatullah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Since the beginning of Ramadan, we've been talking about taqwa, how to raise our level of taqwa. What are the different factors which influence, which impact our taqwa? We talked about how important it is for, especially in this month of Ramadan, that we ponder, that we do tafakkur, that we reflect, that we introspect. We said that some of the other factors which affect our level of taqwa is our family, because our family have the most number of rights upon us. If we're better able to fulfill those rights, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow our taqwa to go up. If we don't fulfill those rights that we have upon our family members, then our level of taqwa doesn't go up as much. We talked about, in terms of a marriage, how we can have a healthy marriage, and how a healthy marriage allows both the husband and wife, allows both of them their levels of taqwa and the degrees of taqwa to go up. Today I want to talk about one of the other things which affect our level of taqwa, and that is in how we deal with our children, and how we deal with how we raise our children, because this is something which also impacts us. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ala Muhammad wa ali. If I can please request the sisters that if they want to speak, they can please step outside and they can talk there, and please not to disturb this gathering. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ala Muhammad wa ali. One of the beautiful things that Islam did when the Prophet came was that Prophet was very revolutionary in how he began to deal with different members of the community. One of the segments of the community where the Prophet really changed the community radically was in how he used to deal with children, and how he used to deal with people who were younger. We know, and we've been hearing this since we were kids, that during the time of the Prophet in Makkah, there was this practice among some of the tribes where they used to go and they used to go bury their daughters. It was prevalent, it was there, it happened. There's a verse in the Quran which also talks about it. But also boys and sons who were there, they were not given that same level of importance. They were not considered to be valuable members of the community. While they were young and when they were in their childhood, children weren't given that level of importance. The only time where they were given importance was when they reached a certain level where they can become an active member of the tribe, when they can go and they can pick up arms and they can fight. Until then, they were not considered to be citizens of the society. And one of the issues that was there that during the time of the Prophet in that community in Mecca was that parents did not used to show love towards their children. They did not used to show their affection and their feelings and their emotions to their children. There's a hadith that from Imam as-Sadiq where he says that a man came to the Prophet and he said to the Prophet, "Ma qabbaltu sabiyan qat," that I have never kissed a child in my life. And when the man left, the Prophet said, "Hada rajul indi innahu min ahli nar," that such a person who in his life has never kissed his son, has never kissed his children, in my opinion, he is among the inhabitants of the fire of hell. In another tradition, somebody comes into the Prophet and says that I had 10 boys, I had 10 children, and I didn't kiss not a single one of them. And so the Prophet says to him, what can I do if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has removed all of the mercy from your heart? Your heart is devoid of mercy if you cannot go and show your love and appreciation towards children. And Rasulullah, with his own life, and he brought this example of how to treat children and how to talk with children. Rasulullah would be an individual, a personality. When he would see young people, he would go to them and he would go and give them salams. He would go and he would greet them. He would go and he would kiss them. He would go out of the way. Even though he's the head of the state, he's the leader of the government, he's in charge of all of the forces and the army and the military, but he would go and he would play with them. He would spend time with them. There's different traditions that we have where Prophet, they were waiting for him in a masjid, and when they saw that the Prophet wasn't coming, one of the companions went out to go see what he was doing. where he was. And as they were going towards his home, they saw that Rasulullah is on the streets playing with the children. He's playing with the children, and they're climbing him, and they're playing, and I don't know what you want to call it, but piggyback. He were on his back, and they were walking. They were playing with him, and Rasulullah said that it's narrated that Rasulullah said, I can't leave until these children until they sell me. So he tells the companion that go inside the house and see what there is something that I can give to them. So the companion goes inside the house and he brings some walnuts. And he says, do you agree to sell your camel for this number of walnuts? So the children, they agree, and they take the walnuts and they free Rasulullah, and Rasulullah is able to go to the masjid. But that was how he used to interact with children. He used to be very playful, he used to be very joyful, he used to take time out of his schedule so that the children feel as if they're important members of the community. Not that they're neglected, or they're a smaller or a lower version in the society. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He went even as so far to even call them ma'soom, that the awliya of Allah, that their crying is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he came and he introduced that parents have a huge number of rights upon them in regards to their children. That parents, all of these rights that they have, that they must fulfill them. They must treat them with respect. They must honor them. They must respect them. And Islam, and especially the way Rasulullah, when he came to teach the community, he completely radicalized and revolutionized in how parents and how elder people should treat some of the younger people. One of the things that we find is that Rasulullah, that he's narrated from him, that he said that man qabbala waladuhu kana lahu hasana. What he said was that even if a person goes to his child and he kisses him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes an hasana for him. And then he says that man farrahu, if a parent or if a person goes and makes a child happy, farrahallahu yawmul qiyamah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that person happy on the day of judgment. And so it's these simple things. If we continue with these simple things in our life, it's what makes our family life more fruitful. It's what makes our family life more sweet. One time they brought an infant to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah was holding the child. And the infant, what he did was he urinated on the clothes of the Prophet. So the parent who was there went to go and pinch the child. And so Rasulullah moves the child away, and he said, what are you doing? The nafs of this child is soft, is sensitive. Why are you going to go pinch it? Don't do such a thing. So Rasulullah, he introduced a completely new manner in how we deal with young people. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So in terms of us parents and grandparents, how do we engage in this tarbiyah? In order to first understand what tarbiyah is, I would like to give a definition of tarbiyah. What tarbiyah is, basically parents, what they do is that they need to create an environment, and they need to create the circumstances which allow for the enhancement and for the development and the growth of the child's skills and his strengths. Every person is born with certain potentials. The child needs to be in a certain environment, in a certain atmosphere where those potentials are actualized and maximized. There's a difference between, for example, tarbiyah and what we call as-sana'a. As-sana'a means manufacturing. Tarbiyah means training. When we manufacture something, we gather the raw materials and we put it together. Tarbiyah is not like this, because tarbiyah is not something like we install something or we build something. Tarbiyah, it goes a little bit deeper than that. Tarbiyah is to give life. It's ihya. It's to revive. It's to put within the child, endow within the child certain values so that the child learns how to make decisions. Tarbiyah is about growth, it's about development, it's about training, it's about instruction. When the Quran talks about tarbiyah, when it uses the word tarbiyah, it says, وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ حَامِدًا, that when you go and you see the earth which is dry, it looks lifeless, it looks as if there's nothing inside of it. فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءِ, but when we descend upon it, when we allow for water to land on that lifeless earth, اهتزت وربت. What happens is that the earth begins to swell and it grows, rabat. It begins to develop, it undergoes tarbiyah. And so this is what rabat means. Rabat is only used for those things which are alive, those things which have a potential within it. And so that's the same thing when we talk about tarbiyah of children, that they have certain qualities and they have certain potentials, and we as parents have to maximize that. We have to try to take all of those potentials out and allow it to reach its maximum capacity. Salawatullah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali. Sometimes we have the perception that tarbiyah is to instill certain values. That, for example, we want our child to pray, so our child should pray. We want our child to read Quran, so the child should read Quran. We want the child to be generous and these type of things. However, the way that Islam introduces tarbiyah is that we should try to plant the seeds so that naturally they begin to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we should plant the seeds within their minds, that they do dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we plant the seeds in their mind so they're automatically good human beings. That instead of making those things the primary goal, but putting in those seeds, that they are automatically inclined towards doing those types of things. And so when we're able to put those proper seeds and the proper incentives in their mind, then automatically they begin to pray, automatically they begin to worship, automatically they begin to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we force them to pray and we force them to worship without putting the seeds in order for them to do it, then they may do it for a little period of time, but the incentives aren't there. So tarbiyah is this. Tarbiyah is, what are those seeds? What are those things that we need to plant in their mind so naturally they grow and they pray and they worship and they read Quran and they're inclined towards religion. And perhaps the best example that we have of a murabbi, of somebody who gives tarbiyah, is the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ali. In that the way Rasulullah did tarbiyat of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, the way Rasulullah taught him step by step how to be, how to behave, how to talk, how to listen, how to live his life, then we see that is the most perfect example in how a murabbi should do tarbiyat. And Rasulullah was successful because every single potential that Imam Ali was endowed with, Imam Ali was able to actualize it and maximize it in his life. Tarbiyah, we have two things. We have tarbiyah and ta'aleem. Tarbiyah cannot happen without ta'aleem. Ta'aleem means instruction without teaching. And ta'aleem cannot happen with tarbiyah. It's important that both of these go hand in hand. That while we do tarbiyah, we also do ta'aleem. We also do instructions. We all know the famous hadith from the Prophet where he says, "Utlubul ilm min al-mahdi ila al-lahad." That seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. You know, one of the beautiful things about this hadith is that Rasulullah is acknowledging that a child, which is a newborn child, while the child is in his cradle, is that the child can learn things from his mother and from his father, right? And so the way our personalities are, the way we talk, the way our tone is, the way we speak with one another, a child is automatically hearing these things, observing these things, and as a child grows, the child begins to implement these in his life. So these two things, tarbiyat and ta'aleem, they go together and they're fused. It cannot happen without one or the other. So tarbiyah is putting whatever you learn, whatever ta'aleem is there, that you put it into practice. And a lot of times this happens even in a lot of some Islamic schools, where children, they go to Islamic schools and they learn certain things. And so ta'aleem is happening. But then the second part, tarbiyah, is not happening. Because what they learn in the Islamic school, when they go home, that is not what is being practiced. Whatever they learn, in order for it to undergo proper tarbiyat, it needs to be practiced. And if there's a contradiction between the two, then the child will be in confusion. Salawatullah Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, what I would like to do tonight is focus on 4 different points of tarbiyah. And that we as parents or grandparents or uncles or even teachers, that these are the 4 very important aspects that we need to focus upon. The first aspect is the intellectual aspect that a child has. Every child is given some intellectual potential, and that we as parents, one of our responsibilities is that we should allow for the development of the child's intelligence. And so the mental aptitude which is there, we should engage it, we should stimulate it, and we should allow the child to ask questions. We should allow the child to be inquisitive and curious. One of my favorite hadith from Imam Ali is where he says, "Man sa'ala fi sighrihi, ajaba fi kibrihi." That somebody who asks a lot of questions while he's young, then when he gets older, he'll answer a lot of questions. So a child, when he's young, you see a child is very inquisitive, always asking questions. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Why are we doing it this way? How does this work? The child is always asking questions. So it's important, one of the responsibilities for us as parents or grandparents or murabbi in general, is that when a child asks these type of questions, we encourage the child to ask these type of questions. And we try to answer these questions in the best manner. We don't dismiss the child and say, don't worry about it, when you get older, you'll figure it out. These things, they just work like this, Stop being so nosy, stop asking so many questions. No. One of the things that we have to do is that intellectual aspect that a child has, we have to allow it to develop and we have to allow it to grow. So how do we do this? How do we promote the child's thinking and the child's questioning? One of the things that we can do is that we should read with our children. We should read some articles, we should ask them questions. What is your favorite subject in school? What subject do you enjoy the most? If you like science, then ask questions. What are you learning in science? What mesmerizes you? What captures you about science? It's important that us as parents, that we give that level of importance to children. So children, they have this sense of self, a sense of self-respect and self-worth. And if we value them for their learning, then what happens is that they focus their life on learning. And that's something which we're supposed to do, that our lives are supposed to be lives spent in learning. A lot of times parents, they make the mistakes that they emphasize upon the child that a child should get good grades. And whether they're learning or not, that they should, no matter what, get good grades. So then you see, parents, throughout the year, the only times that they're worried about their child is when the report cards come out. But, however, the time before the report cards come out, they're not interested, they don't ask questions. What are you studying? What are you struggling with? How is your teacher? No, they're only focused on the grades. And so what's happening is, the child is what? The child is thinking what is important is not learning. What's important is I get good grades. So instead of focusing on the process of learning, the child is beginning to focus only on results. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. So the first aspect that we need to focus on is the intellectual aspect. We need to allow them to be inquisitive. We need to allow them to be curious. We need to ask them questions. Even like, for example, these gatherings that we have. Our children, if they're listening, ask them in the car, what did you learn from the speaker? Did the speaker say something which was interesting? Ask the child, spur the child's curiosity. That's the first aspect, the intellectual aspect. The second aspect that we need to, as parents, grow and develop within our children is the moral aspect, the akhlaqiyat, to be ethical. We have to teach children certain things that they need to be fair, that they need to be just, that they need to respect their elders, that if they borrow something from someone else, that they should treat it with respect, that they should go and they should greet other people. And so it's important, especially for parents, that the way that they are, the children observe this and they implement these things. I'll give you an example. If a parent of a mother and a father, if they're in the center, if they're in the institution, and they're helping out, they're volunteering, they're cleaning up, they're vacuuming, the child observes this and the child automatically begins to do these type of things. But if the child is seeing the mother and the father just sitting back and relaxing, leaving his plate there, not caring to pick up after himself, then the child begins to adopt these same values. So it's important that parents realize that their actions are also directly impacting the children. The way that they are is impacting them more than the way that they tell the children to be. So if a parent is active, if a parent is volunteering, if a parent takes religious activities seriously, if a parent is disciplined, comes on time under the program, then the child learns that these things have a level of importance, so we also need to do them. This is a story from the life of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali, where one of the companions, he narrates, he says, Kunna inda Jabir ibn Abdullah, that we were with Jabir ibn Abdullah, fa'atahu Ali ibn Hussein. And the fourth Imam, Imam Sajjad, came to Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Wa ma'ahu ibnuhu Muhammad, and along with him was the fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir, and wa huwa sabi, and he's a young boy. فَقَالَ لِإِبْنِهِ, and so Imam Sajjad tells his son, قَبِّلْ رَأْسَ عَمِّكِ, go and kiss the head of your uncle, referring to Jabir ibn Abdullah. And so Muhammad ibn Ali, he goes to him, فَقَبَّلَ رَأْسُهُ, he goes and he kisses his head. And Jabir asks that, who is this boy? Man hada? And so, because Jabir, he had reached a very aged point in his life, that he lost his eyesight. And so Imam Sajjad tells him that, Hada ibni Muhammad, that this is my son, Muhammad. فَضَمَّهُ جَابِرْ إِلَيْهِ. So Jabir goes and he hugs the child. And he says, Ya Muhammad, referring to that young boy. He says, Muhammadun Rasulullah yuqri'uka alayka salam. That Rasulullah Muhammad has sending you salams. And so the companions who were there, they said, فَقَالُوا لِجَابِرْ كَيْفَ ذَلِكَ? How is it that Rasulullah is sending salams to this young boy Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam? And so he says, كُنْتُ مَعَ Rasulullah. I was with Rasulullah, وَالْحُسَيْنِ فِي هِجْرِهِ. And Imam Hussein was in the lap of Rasulullah, وَهُوَ يُلَاعِبُهُ. And Rasulullah was playing with Imam Hussein in his lap. فَقَالْ يَا جَابِرْ يُولَدْ لِإِبْنِ الْحُسَيْنِ إِبْنِ يُقَالْ لَهُ عَلِي. The Prophet turns to Jabir and he says, this son of mine, Hussein, he will have a son by the name of Ali. إِذَا كَانَ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ نَادَ مُنَادٍ لِيَقُمْ سَيِّدُ الْعَابِدِينَ. And if the day of judgment comes, that a voice will come that the Sayyid al-Abidin, that the leader of all worshippers should stand up. فَيَقُومْ Ali ibn al-Husayn. And so the fourth Imam, Imam Zain al-Abidin, will stand up. وَيُولَدْ لِعَلِي ibn يُقَالْ لَهُ Muhammad. And this Ali ibn al-Husayn will have a child whose name is Muhammad. يَا جَابِرْ إِنْ رَأَيْتُهُ فَقْرَهُ مِنِّي السَّلَامُ وَأَعْلَمْ أَنَّ بَأَقَاءَكَ بَعْدَ رُؤْيَتِهِ يَسِيرٌ. And so Rasulullah says that when you see this child, go to him and send him my salam, and know that your life you don't have much more to live. So the important point in this story is Imam Sajjad, what is he doing? He's training his child Imam Baqir how to deal with elders, how to be respectful to them, to go and to kiss them, to greet them, to be kind and to be affectionate with them. And so it's important for us as parents that we teach them these type of things, that we reinforce these type of things. If we're in the center, that we don't do israf, that we don't waste food, that we try to be as clean as possible, that when we take our shoes, we put our shoes in their proper place. We don't just leave our shoes on the ground. It's important that us as parents, that we fulfill this aspect in their personality where they learn akhlaqiyat, where they learn morals, and where they learn ethics. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali. The third aspect of tarbiyat that we need to focus on is those talents and skills that children have. Every child is inclined towards some type of hobby. For example, painting, drawing, sports, whatever it may be. It's important that we as parents, that we allow the child to grow. We allow the child to develop in those hobbies and in those leisure times. If, for example, if a person has a nice voice, we should encourage the child that, recite the adhan, or read the Quran, or recite nohe, or do madahi, or do these type of things. We should encourage the child. These type of things which are there, they're important for a child to grow and develop. And we as parents, we have to value them. It's narrated, it is a hadith in Usul Kafi, where it said that Imam Sajjad had a very beautiful and melodious voice. So much so that when the Imam used to recite the Quran, that people used to come to his door just to listen to the Imam recite. إِنَّ السُّقَّائِينَ الَّذِينَ يَمَرُّونَ بِبَابِهِ كَانُوا يَقِفُونَ لِإِسْتِمَاعِ صَوْتِهِ. The people in the suq, the people in the market, that they used to go intentionally walk by the house of Imam Zain al-Abidin just to listen to him recite the Quran. And that was how beautiful and that was how melodious his voice was. So if a child has these type of skills, we as parents, we have to allow those skills to develop. And we have to appreciate the beauty in what they're attracted to. It's important that we don't say things like, stop wasting your time. Go read a book. Go do this. Go do that. Why are you wasting your time? What is this? Throwing a ball in the hoop nonstop. Go do something else. Instead, we as parents, we should encourage these type of things. Do we have these hadith where even the Prophet, where he encourages us to go and engage with our children in some of these activities? There's a hadith which is narrated where he says, "Allimu awladakum as-sibaha wa rimaya." Go and teach your children swimming. Go and teach your children how to do archery. Spend time with your children. Do physical activities with your children. There's other hadith which say that teach your child how to go and ride a horse. Obviously, these were things during the time of the Prophet, and they may not be as prevalent as they are in our time. But the point of these hadith, there's no mawdu'iyya in it. What the point is that we should be spending time with our children, we should be teaching them, and we have to be training them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali. The fourth dimension that we need to encourage in our children is that this aspect of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mentioned a few days ago that all of us have an ana al-malukutiyya wa ana at-tabi'iyya. The ana malukutiyya is that part of us human beings which is inclined towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which loves remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But because of the levels of materialism, the stains of sins, or whatever develops on the nafs, sometimes we forget how much we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We distract ourselves from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a verse in the Quran that people that instead of worshipping Allah, they worship their own nafs, they worship their own desires, because they've distracted themselves from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's worship. So one of the things that we as parents have to do is we have to allow our children to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to create an environment where they feel comfortable remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something which is important that we try to do. So for example, we have to prove and we have to show and display to our kids that after we read salat, that salat is something which gives us peace, which gives us solace. We have to show to our children that when we recite dua, that we're different from before we started dua, and when we ended dua, that we're more calm. We're in a better state of mind. If before we were upset after dua, then we're in a different state of mind. If, for example, if we became angry, children are observing these things. If they see the father angry, and then they see the child go and read, they see the father go and read the Quran, and the father changes his personality, he cools down, then they realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and religion has a certain impact in their lives. And these are life lessons that will stick with them till the end of their lives. When they get older, they'll see that if they're in a bad mood or if they're upset, that they go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They go towards dua, they go towards Quran. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. We have to show to them, to show our kids, that through remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find tranquility, we find peace, and we find salat. And so it's important that this aspect is not neglected, that we encourage our children in a very soft manner. And so some of the things that we can do in order to encourage this dimension within our children is that one of the things that we should get into the habit of is that when we're in our homes, we should recite Salatul Jama'ah together. We should pray in congregation. The father should lead, the children should read behind the father. Everyone should read together. And this is something which will allow for that dimension of worship to grow. If it's, for example, Tuesday night, recite Dua Tawassul. If it's Thursday night, recite Dua Kumel. Get into the habit that maybe once a week that you read Quran. Everybody sits in a circle, everybody reads a few verses of the Quran. You read the translation of the verses of the Quran. What will this do? This will increase that inclination towards religion, that inclination towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember, when we were applying to colleges and this and that, one of the things that we used to do is that we used to, for example, every person used to recite 1,000 salawat. So we all used to sit in a circle, and we used to, in order, they can make a sort of a mannat, that, if I get a good grade, or if I do well, and I get into, for example, a good university, or I have an exam coming up, for the sake of that, we'll all sit together and recite a certain number of salawat. We'll all do the dhikr together. And so these type of things, what happens is that the child, that aspect within him which is inclined towards Allah, it begins to develop. We should recite du'as together, Dua Joshan Kabir. Recite parts of it together as a family. Let it be a moment where the family comes together and they spend quality time remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's a hadith from the Prophet where he says, Murru sibyanakum bis salah idha balaghu sab'a sinin. A lot of times people think that this hadith means that when a child reaches 7, that's when we should start forcing and coercing the child to start praying. However, there's preliminary steps which need to happen before that. As a child grows up, the child is observing the parents. The child is seeing when it's the time for salat, if the parent immediately drops everything and begins to go pray, begins to worship, then the child will understand that salat is something which is important. But if the adhan is going on and they're continuing to watch TV, if they're continuing to disregard the adhan, then automatically the child will think, oh, salat is not that important. But if they see the father drop everything when it's time for salat, then they will also realize it's time for salat. If you have young children, one of the good things to do is, give them a sajjada, give them like a janamaz, give them a place to worship. Tell the child that this is your turba, this is your tasbih. You pray over here. I give my child, for example, like a hat, like a kufi, and I say, okay, when we pray, you have to wear this. This is yours. So automatically what's happening is those preliminary steps which nudge him in the direction of reciting prayer and attract him to prayer, those are already done. And so it's important that these things, this dimension within children, that we also try to put that love of worship and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in there. And this is something which needs to be done on an individual level, on a family level, on a community level. On a community level, if young children, they go and they do something, if they recite adhan, if they recite Quran, it's something us as community members, we should encourage them, we should praise them, we should give them a gift, we should go and say, for example, shabash, or offering, these type of things, we should do it so that they feel encouraged. They feel that when they do religious activities, they feel appreciated. And so these are important things that we need to do in order to strengthen the future generations that are coming, that they feel attracted to Islam, that they feel that Islam is not something foreign to them, but something is part of their own lives. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these months, in these nights of Ramadan, that He instills within our youth the attraction to salat, the sweetness of salat, the nectar of salat. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put in our youth the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that whatever sins that we've done, that He may forgive us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that in these nights of Ramadan that we are able to raise our level of taqwa and come closer to Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our youth and instill within them Islamic values of taqwa and piety. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the dhuhur of our final and awaited Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, ajjalallahu ta'ala farajuhu sharif. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Five minutes, Surah Yasin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردن الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وأن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون. والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون. وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salaam alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. There is a car that has been parked in the handicapped parking, which is illegal, right? So you have to go. The car is a Porsche. Oh, it is a Porsche. If I can find it, can you bring the image one more time, brother? Can you bring the image one more time? Okay, it's okay. So as soon as I said it is a Porsche, the owner. Oh, handicapped, right? Okay. So is it yours, Mahdi? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, couple of quick announcements and introduction to the programs. All right. So